Um, so we can probably get kicked off here and other people will drop in as they make it. We'll see if Andre makes it. Because I know he really wanted to be here, but at least he'll see the recording and I'll have a conversation afterwards if he can't. But welcome to the forum. I'm super excited to have Eggy here today. Um, she'll be kind of going over the social layer that she's creating with a couple of other people, coming a
Mhm.
little bit out of her PhD that she's doing at the same time. So lots of work going on there. And I'm excited to kind of like understand the differences in the primitives that she's been creating and the ones that we have and see how we can um, cross-pollinate our ideas. So Aggie, you can kick off whenever you're ready. And
Okay. Okay, hi everyone. I'm Eggy. Now I'm a visiting student in MIT Media Lab, and my study in design. My research topic is design for social innovation. So is that why I'm like very into the community things and also like the crypto world. And I want to share my screen and to share some ideas about social layer and also some ideas about how we could building a social layer in design community. So because I'm a like a action researcher, my research journey is always happening in communities. As first as I research on the community garden, so I need to like talk to many people in the community, and they always found help me with our data and also some of the very interesting insight. So I found that maybe there's a way we could like involve many people to do the research. So I think this kind of civic science and also um the designs also have this kind of vision. I think how can we like involve more people in the research area rather than research our own community. We could like research within and by the community. And also, I think that community also adapt, and adapt is also a community. Like in Media Lab, I can feel it like very strong community sense in Media Lab because we have many community events like the Festival of Learning. The festival is about everyone they could like provide your skill to teach someone else. So everyone could like teach some how to cook pasta and how could like become a DJ or something. So it's kind of also a community things happening in lab. But that's the question that if we treat the community as a lab, and how could we like trust some of the like the researcher if we don't have their like the school or the university they are recruiting by, and also like their very formal publication, because some of the researcher they made did some research but they don't like publish it, or they have many good data but they don't know how to like put it into a very formal publication. So if we want, if we can, we could build this kind of social layer. And that's the idea that social layer have been always doing, because we, at first, we focusing on the community. It's not like the research lab, but the community also have this problem. It's like how we could trust a person, he or she is fitable in this project in community. Like if we want to build a community garden in this community, and who we could trust, and someone they maybe just hands up and say, okay, I will do this, and they commit a lot, but they always escape from the gardening work, so the like the gardens would become very bad. So we if we have a like a sensitive layer, we could encourage them to become an initiator. They could like host some events, and also they could host a project. Everyone could join, so this community will grow Like, so my research topic is about how people like create a new media, like events on project or something, and attract more people, so the community will grow and be vibrant. Um, so that's also the research project is also like overlapping a little bit with this startup project. And so because I have a talk in the Sign OS this year's and trying to building the social layer of design. And I think Elia and Elger, they have many like great feedback on that because they also want to do something like the reputation system and whatsoever. So I'm thinking about maybe today we could do like a brainstorming. It's about how we could adjust this social layer protocol we have already built um, from the community, like the general community, to a specific community, like in design community. So is there some primitives we need to change? And also, what's your idea about, okay, how the reputation in design community could be like? And is the host event also become a reputation, or it should be like you should only write some data, no, gather some data, or you should write a like research proposal that should be a reputation evidence. So what is the reputation evidence you think is important? Something like that. So maybe I need to explain a little bit how we think social layer could contribute to design. So for the transparent peer review, we could build a traceable contribution and reputation system. So what's the traceable contribution you think is important, and the reputation I mentioned before, and also the open access to data. But if the data is like open access, so how could we like improve the quality of the data? Or we should set some permission in some certain community or groups. Then people will feel, okay, this data is exclusive to this community, and I have this permission to access to this data. And or I will need to propose my research again, and then I could access this data, something like that. And trying to have your insight to give us maybe some great ideas to how to customize it into the design community. And also the very important thing is collective decision making. So how could we find the most important question we should be research on the design community, and how can we set these founding rules, and also the mechanism of who could vote and who vote for what, and the money who can control, and many things we can also discuss in the social layer. So also there's a civic empowerment. I think how to make the community engage more. It's not like, okay, I propose a research, I get the funding, and I just ran away. How to like keep people alive in our community, and how could we encourage them to also propose new ideas, or they could like continue doing their work, something like that. So maybe we could start from this um presentation, and if we have any question, we could answer for now, and then we could go to the brainstorming part.
Maybe one thing that would be helpful before we jumped into brainstorming exactly is on your white paper, you had a bunch of primitives that you were already using around badges and things like this.
Oh
I
yes.
think it'd be helpful to go through that really quickly so that we know how you're currently
Oh,
thinking about this, and then we can build from there.
oh yes. Did I mention in this part like this? Oh, there's another one. Oh, let me post share. We have many version.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yes. Okay, let me share this. This. Yes, so we built the a badge system. So you can see badge as very many different things like connection and reconnection. Like if I can give you a badge that says, okay, I'm a friend of you, something like that. Or I think you are a very talented person and I can like stake my trust in you because I endorsed you and become very talented, then other people will think, okay, Eggy say Ellen is talent, so maybe my friend will believe that, and then maybe he or she will work with Ellen. So that is the like the trust chain we could build, and also other badges is like contribution badge. So if you finish this task or finish this research project, you have some contribution, acknowledgement, and then you could have this contribution badge, or you achieve some personal achievement, like you have already read through 1,000 papers or something. So maybe that is also a reputation. And also the permission badge that could be merged by this badge, or it could be just use the contribution badge to the permission as a permission badge. And also like the reputation badge can also be merged within this badge and also become a new badge because we have this merge system. And also the membership, it can be, maybe I'll show this. It's more clear. So it could be like this one is the batch that you have done some very important research. And this is the badge that someone gave you to see, okay, he has done maybe 5% contribution to my paper. And there's a badge that, okay, the communities that you are very active in this community, then I'll give you 1,000 points. So each badge can be very different, can have many different attribution. So people can easily build this different badge using our like the switch. So it's like if you want it to be fungible token, then you can just switch on to fungible. And if you want to be non-fungible, then it's non-fungible. And if you think this one could be transferable, then it could be. So everyone can build a badge, and you can see like token in our products and then in our protocol, and then it could be showing in this token attribution, so everyone will know, okay, this badge is non-transferable, or this badge is transferred from where, from what people. And also, if you have this, you can say, okay, this badge plus this badge and plus this point equal this badge, and this badge could be like a SBT or something. It's non-transferable, and it's your reputation. Also, you can be like a pass to enter some labs, something like that. So, and also there is something we could also do, like there's gift cards, then you can buy whatever you want, but there's also another badge that show your identity or your reputation. You can customize it in many situations. So because yeah, so we want to know that what is the designed communities scenarios now. Do you have this kind of how to say, this kind of scenario that sometimes you want this credits plus this credit to become a pass to a certain data or something, and what is the scenario will be. And maybe you could describe a little bit deeper in some details. Tell me what time you think, okay, it's a good time. It's a time that I think we should have this kind of thing, or we should have this that reputation system, or you have a pain point that okay, I don't know who I should trust, or the membership system you think you should build on a new one, or what's the point of the why you want to build a new membership system, and why it's so important that you need to know someone have done something, then you could approve it. So that is all the insights I want to hear from you. So maybe you can do you think I explained it? And we can move to the brainstorming
Yeah,
part.
super helpful. So we can jump in. I dropped the Figma in. I'll drop it in again because I think a couple people joined. Um, and we can like jump into there, or people can drop in chat the thoughts that they have around the question that Eggy you just asked, which like I'm just gonna restate so that I make sure that it's clear in my head as well. Um, or like the point that you're looking for is like what are the potential use cases and what are the types of flexibility we would need when we're building up these communities in DeSci so that we know like all right, how might you combine these badges and things like that.
You ask me?
Yeah, that's just like a verification of the question you were asking.
Oh, so because we are building social layer, it's kind of web of trust. So what do
Mhm.
you think is the most important the trust primitive we should put it on the social layer, like on chain and on the open network? How could so what's the scenario of the trust you think you need to have, and the scenario of how to use this like trust?
Okay, so I've dropped the Figma in. Anyone can follow me to find where we're at. And if anybody has additional questions, then we can clarify. Otherwise, Eggy, do you want us to go into brainstorming for like 5 minutes and then we come back? Or is there like a specific format you want? Or do you just
Yeah, I
want to?
think we could do like 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay, we've got like 30 seconds left, so if everybody can finish up their thoughts. All right, let's all come back. Eggy, with the notes I saw you were reading around, is there anywhere that you want to start?
Oh, yes. Like, do you think we could like go through all of it and to see if there are any question or
Sure.
what do you mean by like data trust?
Data trust. Okay, this was one that I had put in where it was specifically, it was something that you were talking about, right? Where you're like, you can tell if data has come from a certain community. But for me,
Oh
there's
yeah.
two parts to this, because, for example, we've seen that a lot of data may be trusted improperly through the community. Um, so we've seen like there's been a lot of scandals recently with academics who have tampered with their data all throughout their whole career. And it's like, all right, how do you cross these two different types of trust? One is like trust through seeing that many people had access to this data, many people could see, maybe it was added to by many different sources. So it's not just one person who has complete control of the trust, but then also that it's through kind of this social metric of like you are part of a trusted group of people who has somehow met these criteria. Um, and so I think that was just, yeah, one thought I was having of the different types of trust, where one is much like a much more technological requirement that could be issued, versus another is more social trust.
Mm, yes, should be okay.
Maybe, Logan, do you also want to go over some of the different types of trust that you were looking at?
Yes,
Sure.
yes.
So social trust, basically just that everybody in a given research environment is actually motivated to improve upon that research and make it find the best data and results as possible. Um, Not that anybody has ulterior motive, like they were hired by an oil company and are doing research on alternative energy solutions. That kind of presents a ulterior motive that might undermine quality of the research. And then identity trust, basically just you are who you claim to be. Because we've recently seen a lot of papers being published with parts that were clearly written by AI. That's a good example of that. That uh, we need to know that researchers are who they claim to be, both that they have the credentials they claim, not that it's just some rando who is saying, "Oh, I have a background in so and so," when they don't, and
Mm.
also that they are actually the one doing the work.
Oh, so do um so what's your like how to say do you think is there a better way to have this identity trust rather than just
Proof of
someone saying
identity isn't an easy problem. I don't entirely know. I mean, you have systems that go through the organization you work for. Like if you work for a university, you can have an academic email address that helps provide some level of verification because we can trust that your employer has done the necessary background checks. Um,
Mhm.
Whether or not we should trust that, it's another question, but we do. Um, and whether or not the work was actually done by you or someone else or an AI or whatever, that I don't have an answer. I mean, right
Mm.
now it's been easy to catch some of the cases that it'll say like, as an AI model, blah blah blah, but that won't always be true.
Yes, I think the AI issue may be like a huge issue in this era because like maybe someone they don't like
And there is a
credit
place
to
for
AI.
AI in research. It's just a question of how much can we rely on it and like
Yes,
how mature it gets.
yes, and someone maybe they didn't mention about it using AI. And
Yeah, there needs to be some sort of disclosure at the very least.
yes, great. I think this should be taken into account. Hmm. So what is other group like group chat or the OR?
I think there's a couple of different things that are coming out as a theme, which seems to
Mm,
be like what you were talking about, Logan, with like this identity trust and the individuals, who they're like who they claim to be, as well as like valid work. And so I think I've seen some that like Chris brought up with like peer review is like kind of adversarial. And then I was talking a little bit about like true validation of a research object. So I'm wondering, it's like when you have these, um, when you have these different types of, when you have these specific like badges, right? I think often a difficulty that I come up with is like, how do you actually coordinate everyone to be going in the same direction? And this is the type of trust that feels important. It's like, I can trust that you're coming on and actually giving accurate and valid feedback, as opposed to giving feedback that is motivated by a badge, or
mm,
motivated by a token, or maybe even just motivated by like networking, right? Like you're trying to get in with this person. And I was talking about this to a friend yesterday about this idea. It's like, if you ask, so it's like if you ask for a review, and then someone brings back an AI review, they're doing it because they're motivated by the fact that they don't have very much time, but that doesn't increase the validity of science. So I think specifically in science, there's this need to like have this really intense validation layer. So I'm wondering how either you or anyone else is thinking about making it, like, this is a problem that we've been having, right? Is like, when you open up your research to anyone, it like can be easily graffitied on, but if you close it
mm,
off, then you as the author kind of can choose if you'll show criticism or not, which means that it's hard to validate, right? Because you can kind of you can close down the doors of criticism. So I'm wondering if you're thinking,
mm.
like, how you're thinking about these badges, or if anyone else has thoughts on that.
Yes, we used to have a thought that because the in social situation is the same, that maybe if you get like promoted when someone else gives you some badge, if a person will ask others to give them badge. So it's like kind of the similar question. So
Mm.
for us, our idea is like if someone continue give many people many badge, maybe it will decrease their reputation. And if someone found, okay, this person's badge is not that much valuable, or it's not that it is totally the opposite ways, maybe this person's trust will be decreased. Um, so we are also building a kind of the social oracle thing. It's about if you want to make a credential to others people, you need to stake some of the token or something. And if we found out, no, your credential to this person is wrong, totally wrong, then the token you're staking may just go to the committee. Yes.
Okay.
But it's very complicated. It's a very difficult issue. So maybe we need to like maybe design together to find out a good way to build this mechanism.
Mm.
Mm.
I also want to add a new use case. It's because with the badges of social layer, you see if someone get such a title uh, for doing some things or a dozen of things, so you can track the origin of this title or origin of this reputation, and so that so it's composable and it's backward trackable, so that you see the origin or the provenance of this honor or reputation, so that when some of you see how he or she get this, and so if that things become more important or less valid, and then the title could also change. So yeah, so you can trace back to the origin of the reputation of the credential. So it makes the structure more dynamic.
Okay, so what
In general, I'm a big fan of badges, and I like you introduced the idea of like these composable badges that you can essentially build to like create different badges and so on. I think that's a really interesting idea. There's a lot of precedents in science around using badge-like objects, especially from groups like Open Science Fund. Even the ACM has badges for artifact reproducibility, all these things, right? And but there seems to be like a taxonomy here. There's like kind of community service, community achievement badges, right? And there's more like, badges related to your research,
Yes.
things that like attribute that it has. So I think it's kind of useful to like think of the taxonomy of badges, what is the space of all possible badges, and think of the ones that like provide the most immediate value to researchers that would like create like the strong draw into the system. When it comes to identity and these kinds of things, I think fortunately we work in like one of the only world existing where we have ORCID IDs. So we do have verified identities. So we built a system that creates like a DID key and writes that to your ORCID profile. You guys are like welcome to use it. The more the merrier. I think it's really, really powerful potentially. And another huge utility of badges is writing them on the ORCID profile of researchers. Because at the end of the day, you need to get that next postdoc, you need to get that assistant professorship, you have the hiring committees and so on and so forth, right? So I think that's really powerful, and that's something we'd love to help you guys with. I think like for the technological substrate itself, so the advantage of having a badge on chain is that the contract knows about your state, right? It knows that you have owned the badge, so you can start triggering things, right, in these systems. But I do think also it does come at like a significant like UX and financial cost, because even on L2s you have quite you have gas fees, you have a lot of like clunky UX researchers are not accustomed to. So like this is also something we've been kind of like working on quite a bit, is this idea of like having badges as essentially digitally signed attestations. That still have a time oracle aspect to them. So this is something blockchain gives you, but like you can do that by batching. So there's that aspect. The downside of these badges as cryptographic attestation is that the contracts or like the chain or the EVM has no idea about what badges you have, all right? And so you need to, if you really want to use, smart contract logic, then you need to create oracles that feed that data back into the chain. It's a whole other thing, right? But when it comes, like, I think like within the kind of like social and technological readiness of the DeSci space and researchers, I think we should have like a big premium on experimenting and like keeping like the tech burden not too high. And like, so just like, experimenting and quickly iterating with these things. And And yeah, so yeah, look up like what we've done with Codex. It's project work in progress. Happy to collaborate on this as well.
Yeah.
Open source project about how we can represent important data entities that are
Mhm.
important to researchers. So things like their research, attestations, badges, these kinds of things. So, always looking, the more the merrier. If you have any like, developers, I kind of like want to make this like a big open source project. It's like all MIT license. It's like just this great big public good out there. And we hope we can get, a lot of people to think it's kind of worthwhile to like work on that. Because I think, if we can build like a strong like underlying data layer that's like really efficient for researchers and like well connected to the existing infrastructure so that it doesn't appear in a vacuum, I think that could be like really strong. So yeah, so happy to engage in that anytime. Um,
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
what else did I want to say on the topic? Yeah, precedence, efficiency, taxonomy. Yeah, I think another big thing is just finding collaborators, right? I think that's the big value of communities,
Yes.
This is a big issue because like in science, we don't really like kind of like look, or we don't really have good tools to like say, hey, I need a collaborator on this project. There's this specific application of like some machine learning algorithm I don't want to do. Some other people out there are much better than me at doing this. And I'd love to like be able to have them as a co-author on the project. It's really
Yeah.
hard to find these people, right, in these contexts. So that's like
Yeah.
one of the challenges we have to like think like any project that can address that efficiently and like build bridges between people. I think that could add like a ton of value, right, in this space.
Yes, and also people working for different labs. So they have their work to be done. So it's hard for them to like contribute to your work or something. So it's like if we can like broaden the the boundary of the lab, maybe we could diminish it and then we could bridge this link
Yeah,
between labs. That is more
yeah,
important.
yeah. And I think this is all about the problem of credit. So
Yes.
what does it involve? Getting an other lab involved. It involves there's going to be two last authors, right?
Yeah.
There's going to be, well, depending on your field, right? Maybe you're in physics, it's not like that, right? But I don't know how it is at the MIT Media Lab. But like generally that would involve like two senior PIs, last co-authors. And it would also involve like, kind of diluting the credit cap table, right? In a sense, that's like
Kind of complicated nowadays.
right. It gets complicated because there's this big like authorship is like super critical in science,
Yes.
And so this is like the thing you have to like navigate carefully. And I think like the social norms we have around this are like not great. Also, the fact that people are always afraid of being scooped up, or like, so there's like it's like, you kind of like don't tell each other what you're working on with the other big competitive lab because he might scoop you up and he's publishing in the same journals as you. You can't really trust the guy. And so this is like a huge problem actually. Like how can we like make like these kind of like project level credit transactions like more trustworthy, more reliable, more encoded, like in policy, like
Mhm.
um, imagine like the co-authorship agreement, right? Lab to lab co-authorship agreement, right? Policy,
Yeah.
right? And that could like help facilitate things like, yeah, I agree with the policy. I agree with the expectations because this is the thing when you run like big projects, the more co-authors, the more potential for conflict, right? And
Mm.
so like figuring out like how to like set these expectations right is like at the outset is like really important. I think there's a lot of like social technology we can unlock there, right?
Yes.
Social coordination technology around like you go to your PI, you say, hey, there's this other group working on this great stuff. It's super valuable for me for my research idea, but I know it's also a risk for us, right? To extend like because maybe they scoop us, right? Maybe they pretend to collaborate but then they defect, right? Prisoner's
Yeah.
dilemma. And
And
then
they
they
publish themselves.
exactly, right? So like how do you like build a social tech that lets you like enter these negotiation in in a way that has a record of this, so that if they defect, so if there's a defector, there's going to be strong, like, negative social reaction around that defection, right?
Yes.
And so like this is like all really interesting idea. Like this like whole, building coordination technologies to improve lab to lab, like reduce the risk, like de-risking interlab collaborations. Because at the
Yes.
end, PhD students
Sure.
and postdocs, we like, we don't really have a lot of power in the system, right? It's like labs are very hierarchical, right? So we need to like it's not easy, like at least when I was doing my PhD, it's not easy to like walk up to my PI and say, hey, it's an utter rival of yours. I love what he does. Let's do something together. Like, it's not gonna fly, right? So, so yeah, so it's like and it really depends. So I think like thinking about understanding, like, yeah, building that kind of tech, interlab collaboration tech could really help out a lot,
What's the rainbow?
I'm getting balloons here.
The automatic things that come up. Yeah, I think that's like, it seems like there are two things there. So like one thing that you were saying was this idea of like, all right, getting the labs to work together in the first place. But another thing that I've been talking to some people recently about is this sense of like just like economics, like distributing labor properly. And right now within the credit system, like there's often this conversation of like being in biology and no one can do stats, but no one can do stats because in that entire system, if you're trying to succeed in biology, you can't succeed in stats because your focus needs to be being the first author of a paper, as opposed to being like, I am a biological statistician. But if you had like solid credit which says this is a really high quality biological statistician, then you can start supporting someone in that work instead of supporting them to be a first author, quote unquote, or like a conceptualizer, which is like there are many skills in the academic system, and right now there's only incentives for being like the conceptualizer, but not the actual work that sometimes it takes to make things really high quality. And so another thing of the credit system, right, is like being able to support those different workflows, instead of just relying on this kind of arbitrary like you did most work, where it's like what does most work mean, right?
Yes, and also like many of the researcher in like humanity area, they need to like do something very deep, and the quality of their things is very high, but they can't publish many papers. But these days we focusing on the numbers of the paper, the citation of the papers, but I think it's not that important in many areas. Yes, so maybe a credential also focusing on how to name the quality of the research paper is also important. Yeah, do we have any other we want to talk?
I don't know if there's other questions that you have on your end, but yeah, I think just like I don't know, just bouncing a little bit off of what you were saying of like the quality. I think this goes back to why initially I was like, all right, it'd be really nice to talk with you, is because you had the little sliders, right, on each badge, where it's like each community gets to define both their set of badges and then also the ways that they are like distributed or represented, which is something that like gives you much more of a credential of like you have a high quality within this community, and then it's like this community is seen as a high quality humanities community, and maybe that has like kind of this, I don't know if that's a meta community that defines like the badges within for each of these different humanities sets, versus doing that for biology or doing that for physics or doing that for something else, instead of needing to be like you are a good academic, which is just like way too broad, right?
Yes. Yeah, I also have a question like so do you think that the peer review, what do you think about peer review scenario? Like who could do the peer review and how we could trust others' peer review? because if we trying to do the design, I think it's like very important to define the good person, good person, to the perfect person to view your research.
Yeah,
And yeah.
I mean, peer review, I think like now, with the experience I have, I realize like the editor is so important into this, and a peer reviewer is an advisor. And the editor is the ultimate person that does the executive call of accepting a paper for publication. And it's important because the editor is vested by the community with the power of making that decision to apply the community's policy. And
Yes.
so like peer review without an editor, I don't think it ever work, right? At least in its current version, which is adversarial red team peer review. Now, feedback and constructive feedback and improvements, right, that could even lead to a co-authorship. I think this is absolutely game, right? So that's why I like to kind of like try and say there's two things happening. There's blue team peer review and there's red team peer review. Red team peer review without an editor, forget it. It's just going to devolve into problems. Blue team peer review, which is rather like, hey, I need some feedback. Can you make my paper better? I don't know about this code thing. Can you help me out? Oh, by the way, here's you can be a co-author and we can like have credit together and share that. I think that's a huge area where you can have more, a lot of value, right, to scientific workflows through it.
Good idea.
We were talking about this a little bit, or did you have?
No. You go.
Okay, like last time with this group called Referee Support, and they're trying to incentivize specifically red team peer review. They're like, how do you make sure that there is a way that we support the act of like tearing apart and being like, this is very critical. It's important to find bugs. But then there's kind of the sense of like, you need to balance it with like the blue team, and then the red team is also scarier in the open, right? Because I think there was a couple of publishing platforms that were like, like we'll just make a whole unit where you can reuse the peer review, so you don't need as much effort going into like publishing to each journal, all the different separations. And then people didn't like it because if they got rejected from one journal, they would never be published again. So there's this
Yeah, and
sense.
it's hugely unfair, right?
Right.
Because it's a roll of a dice, and you're rolling over a distribution of peer reviewers, and who knows what you get.
Right.
I mean, you're pretty sure you're gonna get a reviewer too who's gonna like take you down, like always. But the question is like it's very adversarial and it's really tough. And like
Yeah.
the last thing authors want is like open peer review by peer reviewer two, right? Because it's like an uninformed person who reads criticism of a paper that is ill-informed without being a topic expert can have its entire perception of that paper completely changed by that, right? Even though a deep subject expert will be like, nah, this is a nonsense criticism, right? But like it's hard for an author, right? So like that's the metadata of failure, and the process itself is unfair. It's very easy to take someone down with red team peer review, even if it's like great work, right? You can always find things. So that's why communities are so important, right? That's why like you need to have accountability to the editor. There needs to be community policies. There needs to be kind of an oversight of the executive by the community. So it's like a really difficult process actually. Like if you just like mindlessly like delete some of the boxes in that cybernetic system, none of it like works, right? So it's a very tricky thing. I also think its usefulness is overstated. It's really bad at a lot of things, but it fulfills an important function within a community because whatever is published has strong expectations of reuse by that community. So you should cite the work, right? And that's kind of the social contract that you have. And so so yeah, we have to be very careful when we want to say like, oh, just delete this box, this arrow, delete that, and just have peer review, right? because it's not that, it's not a thing that happens in a vacuum, right? It has a very special social function, and it's moderated and it's mediated by community governance. Yeah, which is completely different from blue team peer review, which can be absolutely, totally cool. It's like the challenge there is like fear of being scooped. It's like, okay, I want to subject my work to blue team peer review, but what if I get scooped, right? So this is like one of those little challenges.
Yeah, it's challenging all the time.
It's a very complicated system to fix. We know it's broken, but like figuring out the precise surgical intervention is really hard, because if you like, you know, you don't want to mess around with Chesterton as gate, right? Like, why is this here? Never been a gate here. It's all what this gate is useless. You take it out, and all of a sudden, like all the wolves enter the hen's pen, right? So it's like, yeah, we don't know. So, like a lot of these things, we don't know why they're for, but they're here through like
For
trial
some reason.
and iterations, right? Like, and yeah, we just have to be a bit, conscious of that. But yeah, thanks a lot, Eggy. I got to run personally. I have to give a seminar in 3 minutes.
Oh, cool.
But yeah,
Okay.
thanks a lot for coming up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your insights.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in and having that discussion with us and kind of getting in to what we're thinking, what you're thinking. It was nice to kind of like cross the two ideas and see how we could chat.
Yes, and I also have I also find some new scenarios about, yeah, I think that's cool. So maybe we could talk like next time. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. We will have more thoughts on like design community to
Yeah.
our products, our protocol, and then I can reach you again and to share is there some ideas we add from this forums,
Yeah, of
and
course.
also be trying to make a progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Reach me whenever you want. We've got contacts.
Cool. Yes.
So good
Yeah,
there.
I got around too. I have
Right.
that.
Yeah. Bye. Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
thank you. Take care.
Thank you. Take care. See you.
See you.